the much undersung topic of Ronnie's contribution to the strike team, and we're giving him a bit of spotlight because he doesn't really get it, and so he goes from being at the beginning like pretty much an extra, which I think is even mentioned in the behind the scenes stuff, to eventually by season 6 and 7 he's filling the void for Lem, and he's pretty much becomes Vic's number 2 guy, then filling the void for Shane. So Stefan, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, definitely. What's going on, you guys? Yeah, so like my partner is saying, Ronnie being one of the, it's always Vic. We're talking about Vic, and even Shane from time to time. But kind of like what you were saying, Ronnie kind of a underrated character. Not just um, not just with him himself, but some of his characteristics and what he's put towards his contributions. I mean, and what he's put towards the team. Um, One of the things I noticed too, we were talking earlier, man. Kind of I call it the rise and fall of Ronnie. And like you said, I mean, the character development, coming from the extra to kind of like a background character, and then kind of transitioning to a full on main character to somebody that I know I was rooting for. You know, I was rooting for just as much as Vic. And again, if you look back at any real fan, you look back like where Ronnie started, it's kind of like, man, we're rooting for this guy. We're rooting for this background character like he's the main character. Does that make sense? Like, we never would have thought
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I was going to say he's like a supporting wall really of the team, because he's there having their backs, and he's also for a long time up until the end, he's smart enough to not incriminate himself, because when it comes by when Kavanagh's on that starts to pursue him, they say, oh well, they've got me and Vic on theft, on like tax evasion, they've got Lem on the possession. And he goes, you're the only one I think Shane says to him, you're the only one in the clear.
I think I do remember that. Yeah.
I mean, you remember like like also like with Armadillo, I remember when Vic burns his face on the cooker, he's like, he takes the position of say lookout, which is a kind of smart move from a selfish perspective, because it's an essential role. Someone's got to keep lookout and make sure no one clocks on to what's going on, but he's not there actually holding him down like the other 2 guys, or actually burning his face like Vic was.
Is that what you were referencing? Is that what you meant when you said that Shane or someone told him that you're in the clear? Or
yeah, because he's not actually. I mean, he's the only person that they don't really have anything on. Like, I mean, Kavanagh doesn't have anything on Shane at that point. Solid, he does look at his finances and say, "Hang on a minute, I think there's another income here," and he's the same for Vic. He's got the money. Yeah, he's got the actual money, so he does have some physical evidence. He's obviously got a kilo of heroin on Lem, but he doesn't actually have anything on Ronnie. Like even pulls Ronnie in, and Ronnie says, "Well, I went through your finances," and he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "And you found nothing unusual."
Oh, yeah. I remember that. Yeah. He went through the fun. Yeah, Kavanaugh did say that. You're right.
I think he even goes as far as saying, "Look, do the smart thing." He goes, "You're smart. You're disciplined. Do the smart thing. Turn these guys over before they hang you out to dry."
You know what? And I remember that too because, I remember when Ronnie kind of like when he got caught up, I kind of had a flashback. Literally, I'm like, damn, man, like just imagine if you would have took the because I remember at one point he was in the clear, and what it was, I was going back watching the older episodes, and I remember Kavanaugh saying that. I'm like, damn, there was a chance for Ronnie, not like, you know what I mean, like hindsight, like for
wash your hands and walk away clear.
Yeah, like in other words, Ronnie was actually clear at one point, which is crazy. He was clear. So from him to go from, clear to pretty much the jail for the rest of his life is it's crazy. Um, and one of the other things too I want to mention again, with that character, um, we pretty much we saw. I'm trying to word this real. I'm trying to figure out how to word this, man. But with this character, we pretty much again, we went from a character who we could care less about, and I think this is where this is the genius in the writing, from the writers or
Mm.
whatever. But we went from a character who we could kind of give a shit about. I mean, let's call it what it is. We didn't,
Mm. He could have
we
been
didn't
written
really
out without anyone batting an eyelid.
say that again.
I see he could have been written out at the beginning without anyone just, wasn't there a guy there with a moustache,
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah. I think he had a mustache. Did he talk? He said a couple of words or something. I don't know, but
Yeah.
we went from that to like again, just rooting for him. Like, damn, it was just crazy for him to switch those roles, over the course of the season.
Mm. And
But
I was saying, I was talking about you know, background references throughout the show. There's I was watching a little bit of season 7 last night, and I noticed when the guy tries to assassinate him on his doorstep, and he's talking with Vic, and they're like, "Yeah, we know Shane was behind this," just in the aftermath. And then there's a little focus on the door, and there's like which is numbered number 2, you know, like kind of putting a suggestion in. Yeah, Vic, Ronnie's moved into Vic's number 2. Vic's become Vic's number 2 now. You get what I'm saying?
oh yeah, yeah, okay, yeah.
I
That's what
was
you're
saying
saying.
about the F in the kitchen.
Yeah, yeah. No, I can see
Yeah.
that. I didn't, man. Again, man, you that I forget what you were telling me earlier too, man. Like that and the other analogy with the letter, in the background
Mm.
in the cafeteria. So that's yeah, man. That's a great way of putting it. And again, I don't know. We, as fans, as viewers, or whatever, we're not going to really know what direction the writers, that they were, the different directions maybe they were going in. Maybe Ronnie
Mm.
did. I mean, you know what? Hey, we'll stick with what it was, man. Ronnie he got caught up. But just seeing just the fact that Ronnie was gonna, because we heard Vic talk about it. He was talking about it with the I don't know if it was with the one Niners or um oh yeah, I think it was the one Niners. Yeah, he was talking to one of the guys, and they were telling him like, hey man, aren't you about to retire in a couple of days, or
Mm.
you're out of here in a couple of days? And he was like, yeah, but my right hand, what did he say? He said something, but the torch
My
goes to.
yes, yeah, something like that. Yeah, my chosen number 2 or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go, number two. Yeah, and
Mm.
and you kind of looking for a second, like, damn, Ronnie is the new Vic. But
Mm.
as we start to see, he, when he kills the Armenian, and that
Mm.
might have been before, but when he kills the, spoiler
Yeah.
alert too, but
Yeah. But he
um,
does that. He does that for Vic, basically, doesn't he? Because that's the guy that went after Vic's wife and kids.
yeah. Went after the wife and kids, and yeah, man, it was just season 7 was just, man, it was yeah, it was just it was wild, man. Because I don't know if you felt it again. Ronnie. I think Ronnie was one of the more loyal ones. We talked about it earlier. I
Mm.
think he was probably even more loyal or just as loyal as Lim.
Y-
Um,
Yeah, and I drew the analogy a long time ago, like between me and you, but he kind of I was looking at his role as like Robert Duvall's place in The Godfather. He's on the outside, but if when you watch The Godfather, like I won't without spoiling it too much, like Robert Duvall's character is the adopted brother. He hasn't got an Italian background, but he's still their brother. And he even gets, but he gets like they kind of throw it in his face once or twice throughout the story, but over time, like it's shown, he's more loyal than the real family a lot of the time. You know.
yeah, man. I have to go and check out the. That's probably one of my confessions, man. One of my secrets, you guys. I haven't I haven't really seen The Godfather.
Mm.
We got to do a video on that, man. We got to talk
Yeah,
about
no,
that.
definitely. I love that. Yeah.
But no, I definitely understand the reference though.
Mm.
Um, that's actually brilliant, man, because again, we were talking about this earlier. How Shane and Vic, they were pretty much they were partners. They knew each
Mm.
other, and Lim and Ronnie being the outsiders, but they were
Mm.
still in this brotherhood. They were still
Yeah, and
brothers.
they're still, as because on the levels of who's inside, that Vic and Shane are still on that inner level of trust, aren't they?
Yeah, and we
You
don't
know.
really find that. We don't really find out about that inner level of trust until what season well, whenever Kavanaugh came along, season
Mm.
5, I think, and we realized for the first time that, or at least I did, that that it was just Shane and Vic in the bathroom, when
Mm.
when Vic killed Terry.
Yeah,
And
and
it's like,
because like, even when there's dark shit, like there's dark shit, he'll pull. Lem probably won't get into it. That he thinks, oh no, Lem won't go for that. Ronnie maybe, but I know Shane's. I can trust him with that.
well, it goes back to your analogy that you were talking about Robert Duvall with the Godfather, because again, like you said, he knows he could trust Shane with it. That's why Shane was there. He knows Lem isn't going for it, and Ronnie he's unsure of. So just to be safe, we'll
Mm.
keep Ronnie out of it as well. So I think that's, again, that's um the brotherhood that you kind of, they're brothers and stuff, but that's where they're not the full blooded, for that analogy, I mean, they're not the full
Yeah,
blooded, you know what I'm saying, the
yeah,
full blooded Italians, you
yeah,
know.
yeah. Like I was saying as well, like last night, it turns out that the outsider status stretches behind the camera as well. Like because a lot of the extra scenes and things. I noticed Michael Chiklis talking about. He goes, oh, Kenny and Walt are like brothers to me. We've bonded so much over while we're making this show. He doesn't mention David Snell. And I'm wondering if it's just he's still on the outside, even behind the camera.
Man, that's yeah, that's kind of deep, man. Yeah, well, again, I mean, you see these guys, man, and shout out to David Snell, man.
Mm.
I watch whatever he's in. But those, they're pretty much, you're right. It may transcend into the outside world, man. Vic or Michael Chiklis,
Yeah,
Walton Goggins, and Lim.
yeah,
Kenny Johnson, yeah, Kenny Johnson. These guys are like in regular movies. They're doing like, we're kind of, we see them more often than not.
mm.
And even before the Shield. So I think it's just kind of like I don't know. You would think still they would be like they would all four of them would be kind of like a little bit closer, but yeah, that's kind of interesting how they carried over into real life. I think I
Mm.
do remember that too when he said that um, he's like uncles to his kids and stuff, and they all hang out. It's like, damn, all
Yeah.
right. Um,
Yeah,
but
yeah. I mean, I've known it happen on other shows. I remember when I think Cracker, uh, Robbie Coltrane, who was the star of it, they had another actor, Christopher Eccleston, and he quit because he was basically saying, I'm not getting enough screen time. Robbie Coltrane's dominating everything, but the writer extended that into a lot of the scenes. Like there's a quite prominent scene where they've got to drive to the crime scene, and he put in Christopher Eccleston gets in the back of the car while Robbie Coltrane sits up front. And I thought that was just going off on a tangent there, but I think the writer may have been capitalizing on the the status. Maybe it was if there were arguments backstage about you know I'm sick of this guy, and he never writing any stories for me, kind of thing. you
yeah,
know because the feelings were genuine. It's easy if you're a writer, you're just tapping into that.
yeah, no, definitely, definitely. yeah, definitely like carries over into real life. In certain instances. Um, but overall, man, again, hey, shout out to David Snell, man. Shout out
Yeah,
to
no,
Ronnie.
absolutely, yeah.
Just a soldier, man, and yeah, I think he just doesn't get a whole he doesn't get enough credit, enough shine, man.
No.
Um, and it's just again, the character, you know, one of the things that I want to focus on here too, again, is like the character, what I want to say, the character development or transformation,
Mm.
pretty much. Um,
Yeah,
you
yeah. I
know,
mean, he gets brought like he's got a few key points. Like I think they gave him a bit more when Armadillo burns his face in retaliation. Because I think
yeah,
you
that
said, when he came back, I was like, is that the same actor?
Yeah, right. Same thing. Yeah, I was looking like damn because he went from like pretty much the mustache to the full beard and different haircut. I think
Mm.
I think when he first came on, man, he had like a little '80s thing going on. The little haircut with the mustache.
Yeah.
Um, but um, but again, I think that Vic is just so. I think Vic is so. He's so evil and he's so like he's just
Mm.
he's so vicious in nature, and he's what I want to say. I'm looking for a better word, man, but just Vic is just pretty much such his force, this kind of like
Mm.
Godfather, like mafia, like we've
Mm.
seen all the shit he does that it kind of drowns out the other guys are just as bad. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
But
yeah, and
but
I'd say a good way I could describe it is he kind of the other people's personality and the person they are kind of gets overlooked with Mackie's like charisma. He's kind of
yeah,
pushy way. They become kind of just limbs of him. They cease to be people in their own right. You
well,
know.
yeah, yeah, but it kind of, I think the word too, another word is drown. It kind of drowns it, it drowns out
Mm.
the other because again, we don't start to notice, we don't start to notice Ronnie, how put together Ronnie is, until he's working with Billings. He's working with
Mm.
Billings, he's taking down the biker gang, when the guy try to when the one niner try to kill him. I mean, just different stuff. We see him holding his own.
Mm.
And we kind of get it. We saw him when he shot the Armenian. So it's kind of like I don't even think it's such character development. It is, but we're also seeing who these guys are. Again, we would have never seen Ronnie just shoot that guy if Shane and Lim were around. You know what I mean? It
No,
would have
no,
been.
no, I think they said it. When they killed Lemoff, they said, wherever the show's going, it's going to a darker place from here.
Who said that?
I think it might have been Sean Ryan, but it was someone like
Okay.
or one of the actors. But I remember, yeah, it was some like behind the scenes stuff, and they said, well, we know wherever the show goes, it's a lot darker from here.
Okay. Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
and that kind of shows the difference between say Lem and Ronnie. Is like Lem would be is like it was more vocal and he was more active, like he's like more say stronger arm of the team. But like Ronnie's place is kind of being the quiet, keeping the secrets, getting things done that need doing. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, man, that's a great point too. You're right. You're right. Cause yeah, really, yeah, you're right, man. I think just the removal of limb just was kind of just everyone kind of went to that darker side. Again, if Lim and Shane were there, when I said that, if Lim and Shane, if the whole team were together,
mm,
well, hell, that situation probably wouldn't even been there because, oh, I can't even track that down, man. But let's just say that situation, wouldn't have occurred if the whole team was together. And if it were to occur, I think Vic would have handled it himself. Vic or Shane. You know what I'm saying? Like it just
mm,
the that removal of Lim, that conscience of the team, was kind of like you said, the director said wherever the show goes. And now we
mm,
have we have a character, Ronnie, who's pretty much going to the darker side. We're watching it. You know, he told Vic, you know, hey, he pretty much said, hey, that shit felt good, man. I could do it again. You know, when he killed him.
When he killed the guy, or
Yeah. So,
yeah, yeah.
but stuff like that doesn't just happen. You know, that's who that's who a character is. So that's pretty much Ronnie had that in him. He just
Mm,
was never. He never had a. There was no reason to use that. You know, it was either Vic. You know what I mean? At that
mm.
point, it was just Vic and Ronnie.
Yeah, and as the team twists down into a tighter grip, you know, it's now. I think it was natural, really, that was killed first. You know, the guy with the strongest sense of conscience. Although,
Yeah.
like, you know, I mean, I know he's done plenty of bad shit. You know, Lem was the natural first victim of that, and then as it twirls down, like, I mean, I think as well, you know, like sort of going on to his exit, where he like says to Vic, like, you've just stabbed me in the back, like. I think by keeping the secrets all that time, by upholding the team, by covering for the mistakes of Shane, and you know, and he maybe expected the loyalty returned. I mean, and because let's remember, I made the point last night, like Vic could have walked away. You know, they all could have walked away. You know, at some point, but you know, when Vic snitches on Ronnie, he's also snitching on Shane and Lem. You know, and why does he do it? He does it because he thinks I'm still holding a badge or something that's going to entitle me to go out there and push people around. You know, he could have
Yeah.
walked away. He chose not to. You know, he snitches because he thinks, oh yeah, there's something on the other end for me where I can hold a gun, stick it up people's noses and push them around.
Yeah. Yeah. I can still be in the field, sort of, so to
Yeah,
speak.
I don't want to be. He didn't want to be an ordinary guy who's just, you know, walking along in Civic Street.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. Um, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely interesting, man. It's an interesting take. I think, again, I think towards the end there, man, I think just Ronnie was, I don't want to use the term, I don't want to use the term good in any of this, like
No, no.
yeah, but I think Ronnie, like I said, he was the more, he became more and more loyal, and
Mm,
it kind of just spoke volume about the team, man. Again, I think in the end, I think from Ronnie to Lim to even Shane, I think they were all pretty much more loyal to Vic than what Vic was to them.
mm,
Um,
absolutely.
and that goes for Shane too. I think Shane even said it one time. Oh man, what was he? I think he was crying, or he was saying something like, or maybe that was Lim. I think that was Lim. Yeah, that was Lim that was saying, all the shit that we've done and all the, that was Lim. But um, yeah, man. So
Mm.
yeah, I don't know how you feel about that, but
No, I mean, like, yeah, because I think how can I put it? Like, Vic kind of like grooms people, doesn't he? You know, he
hmm
pulls people in and, you know, gets them to believe that his own twisted set of values to get what he wants out of them.
and we
And,
we hear,
and I was going to say, like, we got to ask ourselves, you know, considering how many people still advocate for him, like viewer wise, does he groom us as we watch it? You know,
man.
you know,
Oh, hey, yeah, man. Talk about, hey, man, that was brilliant right there. Talk about a little plot twist, man. What we as an audience get groomed. You're right. We
Mm.
right.
Because we're there, you know, we're witnessing everything. You know, if you give the characters some credit, a lot of them are only seeing a one slice of his behavior. We as the
Yeah.
viewer see it all, see the full circle, you know.
Well, we were pretty much getting groomed right there with Ronnie. Right. We pretty much were falling for it, so to speak, just like how Ronnie was, like, oh man, he's got a deal for Ronnie, oh yeah, man, he's gonna you know, he broke the ice deal and oh, Ronnie's gonna be the new guy and he's gonna take over, we're kind of like, it's like part of us doesn't really believe this, like, we're like, man, all right, Ronnie being the new Vic, but all right, we're rooting for it, but again, that's part of that grooming and part of that, yeah, part of that whole, just what Vic does, man. And like you said, man, that was brilliant. That was a brilliant way to put it. He's not just grooming, the strike team or, pretty much using them, but it's the same effect for the fans, for the viewers.
Mm. Because we, like I say, there's so many people out there. You go on any YouTube video with a clip of the Shield on, and people are saying, "Oh yeah, see, that's because Vic's a badass," or Shane was always a piece of shit, and
Yeah, yeah.
that somewhere in the back of their brain where they're not admitting to the person that he is.
Right, yeah, kind of like in denial, so to speak.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know.
Also, I just want to mention, like at the end in the final episode, I think only one thing that let it down was when Ronnie gets arrested and he says, "Oh, what am I on, what are you arresting me for?" And he says, "Oh, the last 3 years." I thought the only thing that let that down was the time frame was a bit unrealistic.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Because we've been watching it for 7. The last 2 seasons are kind of all within a close space. He should have said, say, 5 years.
Yeah, I think that was kind of like a letdown for me too. That was probably my only problem with the show. Was like, what really? All this took place, and because it doesn't really it kind of takes away from what I want to say. It takes away from, I don't want to say the story, but kind of like it because now it's like, all right, these guys, yeah, they're brothers, but damn, they only been together 3 years. For us, it's been 7 years.
Yeah, just a little bit unrealistic.
Yeah, a true brotherhood. They've been, but 3 years, it's like, all right, they went through all of that. He met Mara. He went through all that with Mara for, like, that was pretty fast. You know what I mean? He met a girl. Remember, he had a girl before Mara. So,
yeah.
He ended that. Now he met this other. Yeah, you're right, man. Because he said the past 3 years, right?
Yeah. And I just felt that let it down a little bit on the side of realism, but I can forgive it. But
maybe Dutch was only talking about yeah, because Jackson is Mara's kid, right? Is Mara and Shane's kid?
Yeah, and he's at least 2.
I thought Jackson was older, man. I thought Jackson was at least
he looks older. I'm saying he could be a big 2-year-old, but he's about more like a 4-year-old. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So it's like, and then look at the kids, man. Look how the kids were, Vic's kids, from the first season. But I know we're probably going into a whole nother topic, man. But it was a disappointment. That's just funny you bring that up because I was disappointed too when Dutch was like, he said, yeah, the past, and I'm like, yeah, the past 7, 8 years. He said the past 3 years. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I felt like I got cheated on, man. Like just watching the show, like, oh no, you guys stole years from the show.
Yeah,
but yeah, man. But yeah, so pretty much, yeah. In closing, man, I think Ronnie again. If I had to pick out of the 4, I'd say Ronnie was probably the more. I don't know, man. He might have been just as loyal as Lim. I think with Lim, we just saw Lim had the conscience. He had the conscience. So,
I think. Go on, sorry. Can't finish.
I was just gonna say, I think the conscience, sometimes could be mistaken for loyalty. But I think we got to see the true loyalty, in the end, when it was just pretty much the last man standing. But no, go ahead.
I was going to say maybe the fact he was an outsider meant he had to try that much harder to, show that much more loyalty, look the other way on more things, like the other, whereas if the other guys, Shane and him are bound together by the killing the Terry alone, you know,
Yeah.
and then Lem's, you know, he seems to get accepted more easy, and because he you know, he's useful to the team. And then like Ronnie's out on the outside the whole time, so he just kind of has to try that much more harder. And then it's only when Lem's gone and then Shane's betrayed him, you know, he's finally got what he's wanting, you know, to be pulled in there tight to Vic. Yeah, you know, be careful what you wish for, as they say.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, that's a great way to put it. You
Mm.
know, yeah, man. So
Because at the end as well, like come season 7, he's running things with Vic by his side after Vic surrendered his badge. You know, he's got no shame. Like Vic's got nothing to
oh
offer him other than, you know,
yeah.
that kind of being in that close friendship. But Vic, you know, Vic's been fired. You know, Vic's dismissed. He's not even a cop. You know, and Ronnie's risking himself by, you know, risking his own job and everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, and it's kind of bullshit too when you think about it. The whole promises about him taking filling in his shoes because you know Claudette pretty much tears or not pretty much she does. Claudette, I think she disbanded the strike team. I think right.
Yeah, no, and when she disbands it, I found as well. You know, when Ronnie's got the suit, you know, she says, no, from tomorrow, your regular detective duty, you're back on the floor, take a desk or whatever. And he comes in his suit, like, and you just kind of see, yeah, there's no more special treatment. And
Yeah, man. Yeah, when I when I saw Ronnie in that suit, man, I'm like, yeah, this shit is a wrap, man. There's it and it kind of you know, he's in a suit and it's kind of like I don't know, it's almost symbolic for I don't want to say everything is starting over, but it's kind of like where it began, you know. You know, Vic started off in the suit, you know, Vic and Shane. Well, you know, in the flashback, at least in the flashback, you
yeah. No,
saw,
I remember, yeah.
yeah, you know, but in that flashback, they had on suits, and that was pretty much the first day that you know, th- that was the day the strike team was born. So, um, you know, now we see Ronnie, you know, towards the end with the suit on. So yeah, I don't know, man. Could be a little symbolism there, symbolic, but um, yeah, I think Ronnie pretty much. I think he was, and Claudette said it. I think Ronnie was just like a lapdog, so to speak. Towards the end, I mean, you know, when once Vic started getting desperate, because we heard Claudette say, you know, he's his goddamn errand boy or something.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, I remember that line. I know you said it, yeah.
you
Yeah,
know.
because I think Ronnie was going around doing things basically to just feed information back to Vic. Well, I think this is after Shane goes on the run, and she's like, you know, he's a goddamn errand boy, you know.
Yeah. So man, I hey, I'm gonna have to cut it short here, man, because I'm at my thing. This thing drains my screen just went dark. My battery's dropping here. May have to cut this a little short, man. I
Yeah,
don't know if you want to stop it real quick or at least the recording. Uh, yeah, pretty much, man. My phone, my charger in the car doesn't. It charges slow, man. So
yeah.
it
So if you're
charges.
doing something like, yeah, trains
Yeah,
about it.
it'll charge, but it's still dropping. It's weird.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but
Okay. Yeah, no problem. Well, we can stop now and then carry on the conversation later because there's more. You know, I think there's more to say.
yeah, no, definitely.
All right, cool, man. All right, I'll speak to you soon. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I got you back. All right.
All right.